How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf 6 of Masechta BavaMetzia, friends. Yo, friends. Alright, today we're going to study that Vav. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. Yeah, today we're going to study that Vav. Yeah, hopefully it won't take too long because I don't know how much more space I have on my phone. I've been traveling all week, as you know, and well, I haven't been going nowhere. I traveled at the beginning of the week, and then I basically haven't gone anywhere. And then I'm gonna be going back this afternoon. But like I haven't fallen behind at all on the recordings, but I haven't really been editing it. Yeah, so that is to say, I don't know how much space I have on my phone, so. Hopefully this won't take too long. Also, like, today's content is like kind of weird at some point. Like, I don't know, we'll have to see what I can do. Okay, we're going to start in that Vav Amud Aleph at the 2 dots. I hope we got to 2 dots because I think that's where I'm going to start. At the 2 dots, about halfway through the Amud, which is nice. We got shtickle head start. By Reb Zeir. So Reb Zeir asks a kasha, Tokfa echod b'fanenu mahu. Okay. Shnaim oichzim betalis. How's Shnaim oichzim betalis going? Not so pasha, huh? So okay. So back to our talis, and you got the 2 guys, and they're fighting over it. Then one of them chaps it. Now he's got it. Mamish like steal the salami. So by Reb Zeir asks a kasha, Tokfa echod b'fanenu. So one of them has it. Mau. What's the halacha? Echidami. No, tell me more. Eid shosik. Well, if we're talking about where, so Shimon's got it now, and Ruvain's quiet. So do ye odile. So Ruvain's betzim saying, okay, I concede, it's yours, Shimon. V'idika tzavach. And if Ruvain is crying and shouting, hey, Shimon, you shmendrik, what are you doing? That's mine. So my avdei lemever. So then, Ruvain's basically doing as much as he could to protest. So, well, you can't hold it against him. He's trying to indicate that he believes it's his. So it's talking about Shimon chaps it. Now, initially, Ruvain's quiet, but then he starts screaming and yelling. So, what's the halacha? Mide ishtik odui odile. Well, from the fact that Reuven was initially quiet, so does that mean that he's essentially conceding? Or perhaps given the kotzova hashta, or maybe that now, since he's making a whole scene, so now it's evident that the only reason why he was quiet initially is sover hakachazule rabbonon, that look, I'm not going to protest, I'm not going to make a whole thing. Clearly the rabbis must see that Shimon is a shtunk, and they're going to not let him have it. And then he sees like, wait, it looks like Shimon the shtunk is getting away with it. So then Reuven starts screaming and yelling and calling Shimon all sorts of names. Alright. Where am I? The Shazik Meikar Savra Chazulei Rabbanon. Amr of Nachman says, Nachman Tashma Bomed Vamamurim. When do we say this? I guess Shnei Moichsim Betalis. Shishneim Adukin Bo. As long as they're both grabbing onto it. Alright? Tug of war. Avalois Talas Yotza. Yotzes Mitachas Yodu Shal Echad Mein. But if one of them has it, so now Shimon's got it. Hamutzi Mechaveru. Olav Araye. So then Ruvain, he's going to have to prove that it belongs to him. Hechidami, what's the scenario? Inemo kidikatoni. If it's simply as stated, that if Shimon has it, it belongs to him, and Reuven's gonna have to prove otherwise. Pshita, that's obvious. Shimon's got the talis. It's his, and if Reuven wants to extract it from him, he's gonna have to prove it. So, Elo shetokva echod b'fanenu. So rather, it must be talking about that that, wait 1 second. Where am I? Rather, it must be talking about where, this scenario where Shimon kind of grabbed it and Reuven's protesting. So it's saying that, in this scenario where Reuven was initially quiet and then he starts, shouting and protesting, we're still saying, Hamotzi mechavero olav haraya. Lo achav ma'eskina kigon to asu l'kamu ki tafisu lo tarvayu. No. The scenario of Hamotzi mechavero olav haraya is talking about where they come to Bezdin and they're both holding on to it. Tug of war. They tug of war themselves to Bezdin. V'aminalu, and we say to them, Zilu plogu. Alright people, split it. V'nafku, and they went, and they left the Bezdin. V'hadar asu, and then they come back to Bezdin. What are you people doing over here? Ki tofis lo chad minayu, and this time, Shimon alone is holding on to it. Hayomer oduye odili, Shimon says, Reuven says I can have it. V'hayomar b'dmei agarti niale, and Reuven says, that's not true, I rented it to him. So we say to Reuven, hey Reuven, a second ago, you and Shimon were in a bitter tug of war, and you were saying Shimon is a gazlan, and now all of a sudden you're just renting it to him with no witnesses, no proof, no nothing. Something seems fishy here. Hamotzi mechaveru olav haraya. By saying alternatively, it's like we taught the asul l'kamun kitofis lo chad minayu, that they come before us and Shimon alone is holding it. V'idach masroch basaruche, but Reuven is grabbing at it. V'afilu l'sumchis the omer moment amutul b'sofik cholkin, even according to Sumchis, who says that when we're uncertain about something, we split it. Below shvua, without a shvua, mod Sumchis desir chalav klumu. But Sumchis would say that if he's just grabbing at it, then that's irrelevant. I don't know exactly what's the difference between grabbing it and shnaim ochsin betalis. Maybe it's shnaim ochsin is more like their mamish both clenched in it, hand in hand, whatever. But this is Shimon's basically got it. Reuven's just kind of trying to get a piece of it, but failing, maybe? Is that the point? I don't know. We're getting very into the details about how exactly you're grabbing onto this talis. I think I might just not know what I'm talking about. It's very detailed. Says the Gemara, if you want to say that if Shimon takes it, motziin osa miyodo, then we take it back from him. Then clearly he's not in any position where it can be makdashit. Okay, if we're saying that if Shimon were to grab it and now he's got it, we would say, hey, you can't just have it. So then certainly he can't be makdashit. But if we say that if Shimon were to grab it, we wouldn't take it away from him, we would let him keep it. Hekdesha below takva. So what if he didn't grab it, but he was makdashit? In both cases, whether he grabs it or whether he's makdashit, it'll be off limits to Reuven. Mao, what's the halacha? Kevin Damer Mar, since we say that since we say that when you're makdish something, so it's like you're giving it away. Kilu, it's no longer in your possession. So kimande takva dam. So it's as if he took it away from Reuven, right? So there's, in that sense, whether Shimon takes it away from Reuven or whether he's makdish it, so now Reuven can't have it anymore, there should be no difference. Or you could say, at this point we're talking about a scenario where Shimon did not grab it away, and he was only makdish it while they still both had it. And the pasuk says, "V'ish ki yakdish es beiso kodesh v'gomer." When a fellow is makdish his house to be holy, ma beiso b'shuso av kol b'shuso. So, if just like your house is something that's in your domain, so also in order to be makdish something, it has to be in your domain. La fukehai de lo b'shuso. The exclusion of this scenario, where the talus is not exclusively in his domain. He's fighting over it with Reuven. So that's the shaila, right? If Shimon and Reuven are fighting over the talus, and then Shimon says, Shimon is makdish it, is it hektish or isn't it hektish? Toshma de'ahi masuso tavumansu olo beit trei. There's a certain bath. There was a certain bath. Okay? Tavumansu olo beit trei, and Reuven and Shimon were fighting over this bath. I guess similar to like Shnai Moichs and Metalis be'etzim. I think we might be talking about like literally like a bathtub, like a metaltalin, I think. So Reuven and Shimon are fighting over the bathtub. I think the point is be'etzim, it's Shnai Moichs and Metalis. Hi Omar Didiu, by Omar Didiu, Shimon says it's mine, Reuven says it's mine. Kom chad binayu aktisha. And then one of them was makdishit. So Parshe Mina, Rav Chananya, Rav Oshaya, V'chulu Rabbanon. So now, Shimon was makdishit. So now Rav Chananya, Rav Oshaya, all the rabbis, they stop using this bath. V'amar Rav Oshaya l'Rabba, it says, Rav Oshaya to Rabba, ki ozlas kamid Rav Chizda l'Kafri. When you go to Rav Chizda in Kafri, be'iminei, ask him about what we should do about this bath. He also the surah, so on Rabba's way to Kafri, he passed through Surah, Omele Rav Amnuna, and Rav Amnuna who was in Surah. Surah was the place where Rav's Beis HaMedrash was. Masnisani, and Rav Amnuna says, it's Take Mishne, Sofik Bechoris. If you have a suffix with regard to a firstborn, unclear if it's actually considered the firstborn, or maybe the mother had a miscarriage first, and so we're not sure if the firstborn is a firstborn. Now, whether we're talking about a firstborn human or whether we're talking about a firstborn animal, and whether we're talking about a firstborn kosher animal or even like a peter chomer, a firstborn tamei animal. Hamotzi mechavero olav haraya. So we're saying hamotzi mechavero olav haraya, meaning, so the firstborn animal would go to the kohen. Okay, firstborn animal would go to a kohen. Now this is a suffix firstborn, so we're unsure if it should go to the kohen. So the kohen can't just go and take it because hamotzi mechavero olav haraya. He would have to prove that it's actually a bechor. But at the same time, says Rashi, that the implication is that if the kohen were to have grabbed it, well then the owner would be unable to take it back without proving that it is in fact not a bechor. So hamotzi mechavero olav haraya. So the assumption here is that if the kohen were to take it, so it would be his. So you have a scenario of like shnai moichs and betalis kind of thing, right? You have this animal. We don't know, is it a bechor? In which case the kohen has a claim to it. Is it not a bechor? In which case the owner keeps it, and they both, I guess, are vying over it. The kohen then takes it, and we're saying that he can keep it. V'tani Allah, and we teach asur b'gizu v'avoda that the animal would be asur. You can't have its shearings or to work it. It can't do any work. So we see it has its kedusha. So Rav Amnuna wants to say that from this brisa we can kind of piece together that in a scenario where you take it, it still has its kedusha. Where if you were to take it, you would keep it. We would not take it away from you, and it would still have kedusha. It would still be hektish. So therefore, if we apply that to shnai moichs and betalis or to the bath, if we were to say that if Shimon takes it, he could keep it, the implication would be that even if he weren't to take it, and if he were to be makdish it, it would be hekdish, just like this animal is hekdish, and you can't shear it or work it. And like I just said, if the kohen were to grab the animal, we would not take it away from him. As it says that whoever wants to extract it would have to prove it. So initially the kohen would have to prove it in order, if he wants to take it, but if he just took it, well then the owner would have to prove it. So we're saying that the kohen can keep it, and even if he didn't take it, asur begizav avoda, it would be asur begizav avoda. So we see that there is hekdesh even if he didn't take it. So in the case of shnai moichsim betalas oichet, in a scenario where if Shimon were to take it, he can keep it. If he weren't to take it but was makdish it, we want to argue that it would be hekdesh. Omerle Rabbe says to Rav Hamnuna, kedushas bechor ka'amart. Wait, but you're bringing a question from kedushas bechor, and to say that there's kedusha over there, that's a different scenario. L'olam eimalach, I'll say to you, takfo kohen motziin miyado. I can make the argument that even if the kohen were to have taken it, we would take it away from the kohen, and we would not assume that that it's his. Right, meaning we could be talking about a scenario where even if the kohen were to take it, we would take it away from him. Still, there would be kedusha to this animal. It would still be also begiz of avoda. The kedusha ba'meileo shiny, because it's a kedusha that comes on its own, right? Meaning, regardless of whether or not the kohen can take it and keep it, this animal would still be also begiz of avoda, because it's born that way, right? It was born, and we're not sure if it's a bechor or not, so therefore it can't be, and therefore you can't do any work with it, right? So therefore the kedusha is entirely separate from anybody being makdish it, and it's entirely separate from whether or not Reuven, the kohen, has the right to take it or not. It's kadosh because it's born that way, and therefore there's no implication for our scenario of shnai moichsim betalas that we actually are trying to determine based on ownership. That, well, if Shimon can take it and keep it, would it be considered his, like if you were to be makdish, would it be hekdish? But over here, by the Bechor, nobody's being makdish anything, and it has nothing to do with who owns it. It's kadosh because it's born that way. And therefore it has, you could still argue that the kohen would be unable to take it, and if he took it, he'd have to give it back. But still, the animal would be hekdish because it was born potentially hekdish, and it's a suffix hekdish, and therefore you can't shear it or do any work with it. And it's no proof for what the halacha would be in the case of shnai moichsim betalas. If we say that if Shimon takes it, he can keep it, we don't know what the halacha would be in terms of can he be makdish it. Omer Rav Chananya the Rabba says, Rav Chananya to Rabba Tanya the Misayelach, Rabba, you talk right. We have a brisa supporting you. Hasfekis nichnosin ladir lehis aser. That if you have sveikis, and the Gemara tomorrow I believe is going to have to explain what these sveikis are, but if you have sveikis, they go into the pen in order to do meiser behema. The way that meiser behema works, I think, is you basically take all the animals and you put them in like some kind of enclosed area, and then you release them through like a gate one at a time. And you count them, right? 1, 2, 3, and in every 10th one you mark as meiser behema, and that is how you do it. So we're saying that hasfekis, that even these suffix, and I think we're going to have to discuss tomorrow what these suffix are, but nichnosin ladir leis aser, you put them in to the enclosure to be included in the meiser behema. Now v'isal kadaitech tokfo koin ein mutzin osum yodo, and if it enters your mind that if a kohen were to take a suffix, he can keep it, well then, how could it be that you can include these sfeikis in the meiser behema? If theoretically the kohen would be able to take it and keep it, then how can this person be including these sfeikis in his meiser behema? You might be separating meiser and tithing your animals with animals that don't belong to you, that belong to a kohen. And therefore, from the fact that you can be ma'aser meiser behema with these sfeikis, so it must mean that the Kohen cannot take it. So now Abaye initially pushes back on Rav Chananya's proof, but then he reneges. Amle Abaye says to Rav Chananya, Imishum ha lo t'say'e lemar. No, this particular brayse would not be a support for Rabbah. In this particular scenario, we're talking about where there's 10 animals. One of them is this suffix. That you can use it for meiser, behema, either way you look at it. Because ibar chiyuvahu, if it is actually chayiv in meiser behema, so shaper kama aser. Well, then you're separating meiser behema properly. I lav bar chiyuvahu, and if it is potter from meiser behema, well, then you don't have 10 animals. Tisha lav bar asurininu. Well, if you have only 9 animals, because the 10th one is not chayiv in meiser behema, well, you don't need to separate meiser behema from only 9 animals. So, therefore, Abai says it's not necessarily an indication that the Kohen can't take it. It's simply that there are only 10 animals, and just separate meiser behema anyways, because if it's chayiv, so you separated meiser behema. If it's not chayiv, well then there's no requirement anyways, and therefore there's no problem with including it, because you're not doing anything wrong. Hadar Amar Abai, but then Abai says, Lav milsi da amri, forget about what I just said. Disfeika lav bar isurehu, because a suffix you do not separate with a suffix. The Tanan, as we learn in a Mishnah, Kafatz echad min amenuyin lisochan kulon pturin. So if I understand correctly, what this is talking about is you have animals that you're separating meiser behema from. So you have all these animals, and they're in this enclosure, and you're letting out one at a time, and you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one of them jumps back in to the pen. So now the thing is, the ones that you already counted, they're good to go, because once you count them, they're no longer shaykh to meiser behema, so you don't have to separate anything from them anymore. Even though you didn't actually separate any meiser behema, you only counted like 3 or 4 or whatever, but once you count them, they don't need to be included anymore. And when one of them that was already counted and potter jumps back in to the rest of them, well then all of the rest of them are also can be potter from meiser behema. Why does Rashi say that? He says, I don't know, I can't find. Mishum ze'am or t'cholasher yaver tachas hashevet amar rachmana velosha over kvar, and not that if it already passed. V'chochad minayu safek kvar overhu. And each one we're not sure if it already is the one that passed out of the pen, of the enclosure. So therefore basically all of the animals are now potter. So again, if one of the ones that were already counted, and therefore potter from meiser behema, jump back in to the enclosure with the rest of them, kulan paturin, then they're all paturin from meiser behema. The ones that have already been counted because they've already been counted, and the ones that's already inside because one of them is a suffix, and the suffix one will not be chayiv in meiser behema. And if it enters your mind that a suffix requires meiser behema, well then you may as well separate meiser behema in any event, right? Bar chiyuva hu, because if when you're so you separated like 3 of them, and those, okay, you don't need to separate anymore. Then one of them jumps back in, okay? So we're saying that if there's a chiyuv to separate from a suffix, well then just every 10 that leave is a group of 10. And if this suffix one is part of the group of 10, we don't know which one the suffix one is. If we did, we would just take it out. But we don't know which one it is. So if the suffix one was in this group of 10, well then it would be potter from meiser behema, so it's no problem. And if the suffix one is not, well then it's chayiv meiser behema, and the meiser behema that you separate is meiser behema. So from the fact that we're saying that all of them are pturin, right? It said kafatz echem emnun lesochen kulan pturin. That must mean that we don't separate meiser behema from a suffix, right? It's not kafatz echem emnun lesochen kulan pturin b'sakadatich sveka b'yi asure. And if it enters your mind that you do separate meiser from suffix la'asim imonavshach, so then you should separate meiser Vehem in any event, that if this group of 10 is all chayev in Ma'aser Beima, so shaper ma'aser, so separate Ma'aser Beima properly, and if the suffix one happens to be included in these 10 that you're now separating from, niftar b'minyan aroi, well then you're already going to be potter because of the fact that one of them was already counted. Dam Rav minyan aroi potter, because Rav says that once they're already counted, you don't need to separate Ma'aser Beima from them anymore. So rather, what must you say? Asiri v'adi amrachman v'lo asiri safek. That when the Torah says to separate every 10th one as Ma'aser Beima, you have to know for sure that it's chayiv in Ma'aser Beima, not a safek. So achnami asiri v'adi amrachmana v'lo asiri safek. So therefore, we will say also by. So therefore, Abaye says, sort of in his response to Rav Chananya, where Abaye said, well, you should just separate the Ma'aser Beima, in any event, Mimanav Shach, no, clearly, then you would not separate Ma'aser Beima out of Safek, and my rebuttal is not a true rebuttal. It's kind of the middle of the sugya now, and it doesn't end for a while, so I'm gonna, what's it called when you say goodbye? Something like adieu or something. I'm going to adieu, and I'll probably have to pick up in the middle. What's today? Today's Wednesday. I'm gonna have to pick up after a flight. I'm gonna be exhausted. But all right, what do you want me to tell you? Peace out.